Most men think they get rejected because they're not attractive enough, not confident enough, or not experienced enough, but that's not the real reason. The real reason is much simpler and much harder to accept. Most men create pressure without realizing it, and pressure kills attraction faster than anything else. So here's what you're going to learn in this video: how to completely remove that pressure, how to create a connection that feels natural instead of forced, and how to communicate interest in a way that doesn't trigger rejection, but instead makes the other person feel comfortable leaning in on their own. And if you really understand what I'm about to show you, you'll stop fearing that awkward moment completely, because you'll realize something most people never do. Attraction isn't something you ask for, it's something that builds when the interaction feels right. Let's start with something honest. Most people don't actually fear connection. They fear the moment where things become unclear, where they feel exposed, where they risk hearing no and not knowing how to handle it. And because of that fear, they rush. They try to secure the outcome too early. They try to turn a natural moment into a decision. And the second you turn a moment into a decision, you pull someone out of their emotions and into their head. And once someone is in their head, they start analyzing, is this too fast? What does this mean? Am I comfortable? And that's where hesitation begins. Here's the shift you need to understand. People don't reject connection. They reject how the interaction makes them feel. If the experience feels rushed, heavy, or pressured, they pull away. If it feels easy, safe, and natural, they stay and often move closer on their own. So instead of focusing on what to say to get a yes, you focus on creating an environment where a yes doesn't feel like a risk in the first place. Now, this is where most people go wrong. They think communication is about asking the right question. It's not. It's about creating the right experience. Because when the experience feels right, you don't need to ask in a direct, high-pressure way. The moment carries the interaction forward naturally. Think about any situation where you felt truly comfortable with someone. There wasn't a sudden, forced shift. There wasn't a moment that felt like a test. It flowed. There was space. There was ease. That's the foundation you're trying to create. So how do you actually do that in real life? First, you stop trying to jump ahead. Most people try to move things forward before the connection is fully there. They rush because they're afraid the opportunity will disappear. But that rushing is exactly what makes it disappear. When you slow down and stay present, you give the interaction room to build. And when something builds naturally, it feels stronger and more real. Second, you pay attention to emotional signals, not just words. Is the conversation flowing? Is there mutual engagement? Is there comfort? Is there curiosity? These are the indicators that matter. When those are present, things can progress naturally. When they're not, pushing forward only creates resistance. Third, you remove the idea of getting something from the interaction. The moment you start thinking in terms of outcome, your energy changes. You become tense. You overthink. You try to control the moment. And that tension is felt immediately. But when you're genuinely engaged in the interaction itself, without trying to force a result, everything becomes lighter. And that's what makes people feel safe around you. Now let's talk about something subtle but powerful: the difference between asking for a decision and inviting a feeling. When you ask for a decision, you create pressure. When you invite a feeling, you create space. For example, instead of pushing the interaction forward with something direct and outcome-focused, you keep the focus on the shared experience. You acknowledge what's already happening. You stay in the moment instead of trying to jump ahead of it. This does something important psychologically. It keeps both people in an emotional state rather than shifting into a logical one. And connection grows in emotion, not in analysis. Another key point is pacing. One of the biggest mistakes people make is mismatching pace. Either they move too fast, which creates discomfort, or they move too slow while showing no clarity, which creates confusion. The balance is in responding to the other person's energy. If they're open, you stay open. If they slow down, you slow down. This creates alignment. And alignment is what makes interactions feel natural instead of forced. Now here's something that might change how you see this completely. Confidence in these moments is not about boldness or pushing forward. It's about being comfortable with uncertainty. It's about not needing immediate validation. When you're okay with not knowing exactly how things will unfold, you stop trying to control them. And when you stop trying to control them, the interaction becomes more genuine. People are drawn to that kind of presence, not because it's flashy, but because it feels safe. There's no hidden agenda, no pressure, no rush, just a natural progression. And this leads to one of the most important ideas in this entire conversation. The moment matters more than the method. You can use the perfect words, but if the moment doesn't support them, they won't work. On the other hand, when the moment is right, even simple, natural communication works effortlessly. So instead of memorizing lines or techniques, focus on awareness. What's the energy like right now? Is there comfort? Is there mutual interest? Is there ease? If the answer is yes, you don't need to force anything. You just stay present and allow things to unfold. And finally, understand this. Rejection is not something you eliminate completely. It's something you stop triggering unnecessarily. When you remove pressure, when you stay aligned with the moment, when you focus on connection instead of outcome, rejection becomes much less likely, not because you're controlling the other person, but because you're respecting the natural flow of the interaction. And that's the real shift. You're not trying to make something happen. You're creating the conditions where something can happen naturally, comfortably, and without resistance. If you really take this in, you'll notice a change. Conversations feel lighter. Interactions feel smoother. And that moment you used to overthink, it stops feeling like a risk and starts feeling like just another part of a natural connection unfolding.